Everyone in the courtroom saw a guilty kid, a statistic, a black teen in a cheap suit who didn't belong. They were all wrong, especially the judge. He thought he was just processing another case, closing another file. He had no idea he was on trial. Meet Elijah Price, 19 years old, arraigned on a felony charge, grand theft auto. The evidence? Flimsy, a shaky witness ID, fingerprints on a car he'd legitimately been in days before. But the DA wanted to win. And Elijah looked like an easy one, a public defender sighing, shrugging at Elijah, a prosecutor smiling, adjusting an expensive tie. Judge William Hawthorne presided. Old money, old prejudices. He looked at Elijah over his glasses. A smirk played on his lips. This would be quick. He had a golf game at 2. Judge Hawthorne checking his watch, a gold-plated pen tapping impatiently on his desk. "How do you plead?" the judge asked. His tone was bored, dismissive. Elijah looked up. His eyes weren't scared. They were calculating. "Not guilty, Your Honor." The judge almost laughed. "Son," he said, "you sure you don't want a deal?" Elijah's voice was quiet. "Still, I'm sure." The prosecutor, a slick guy named Caldwell, stood. He laid out his case. A car stolen from a wealthy neighborhood. A kid seen running. A positive ID from a nervous homeowner. It was a house of cards. But the judge nodded along. He'd already built the gallows. The homeowner on the stand, pointing shakily at Elijah. Elijah's face neutral, absorbing everything. Then it was the defense's turn. Elijah's public defender, Ms. Gable, stood. She was overworked, underprepared. She started to speak. Elijah placed a gentle hand on her arm, stopped her. He whispered something. Her eyes went wide. She sat down. Slowly, Elijah stood up, alone. The judge frowned. "Counselor?" Elijah's voice filled the room. Calm, clear. "I'll be representing myself, Your Honor." The judge's smirk returning. The prosecutor stifling a laugh. The jury looking confused. Judge Hawthorne leaned forward, amused. "Young man, do you have any idea what you're doing?" Elijah met his gaze. "I have a passing familiarity with the law." The judge chuckled. "This isn't TV. Sit down." Elijah didn't move. "I am within my rights." Florida versus California, 1975. The courtroom got very, very quiet. The judge's smile vanished. The judge was annoyed now. "Fine. Let the kid hang himself." "Proceed," he snapped. Elijah turned to the star witness, Mr. Edgerton, the homeowner. He approached the stand, not like a scared kid, like a predator. Visual, Elijah walking calmly to the witness stand, his hand steady. "Mr. Edgerton, you identified me as the person you saw." "Yes, I'm sure of it." "What was I wearing?" A black hoodie. Jeans." Elijah nodded. "What kind of shoes?" Edgerton hesitated. I didn't see." "Interesting." Elijah turned to the evidence table. He held up a plastic evidence bag. Inside was a black hoodie. "The police found this in my closet." "Is this the hoodie?" Edgerton squinted. "It looks like it." Elijah's eyes flashed. "Your Honor, the prosecution entered this as evidence. Exhibit B." The judge shrugged. So, Elijah said, "The theft occurred on June 12th, a Tuesday." He paused. "Let it hang. The Weather Service reports the high that day was 92 degrees. Another pause. "Mr. Edgerton, do you routinely wear a heavy winter hoodie on 92-degree days?" The witness stammered. I don't know." Elijah turned back to the evidence bag. "This hoodie has a price tag from Threads and Things, a store at the Northgate Mall." He looked at the prosecutor. "The receipt for my shopping trip that day, also entered into evidence, shows I bought this hoodie on June 15th, 3 days after the car was stolen." The prosecutor's face went pale. He frantically shuffled papers. He hadn't checked the dates. It was a mistake. A huge one. The prosecutor sweating. The judge leaning forward, his amusement gone, replaced by confusion. The jury was paying attention now. Elijah wasn't done. He turned to the fingerprint evidence. The state claims my prints on the steering wheel are proof I stole it. He faced the jury. If you borrow a friend's car and they report it stolen later, are your prints proof of theft? He let that sink in. I was in that car the weekend before, with the owner's son, my friend Marcus Thorne. The prosecutor shot up. Objection. Hearsay. Elijah didn't flinch. It's not hearsay, Your Honor. It's a fact. I have Marcus waiting outside, ready to testify. The judge was stunned, silent. The objection died in the prosecutor's throat. This wasn't happening. Elijah turned back to the judge. The nervous teen was gone, replaced by a legal razor blade. Your Honor, the state's case is built on a lie, a lazy assumption. He picked up a court document, the police report. It states, I fled upon seeing officers. He looked directly at the arresting officer in the room. Officer Driscoll, is that accurate? The officer shifted. Yes. You're sure? I'm sure. Elijah nodded. He walked to the defense table, picked up a tablet. I request permission to enter a video into evidence. The judge, bewildered, nodded. Permission granted. Elijah tapped the screen. A video played on the courtroom monitor. Security footage. Time-stamped from the night of the arrest. It showed Elijah walking calmly down the street. He sees a police car. He doesn't run. He waves. The cops get out. They immediately grab him, shove him against the car. No questions. No conversation. Just force. The grainy security footage playing. The jury's horrified faces. The officer looking at the floor. Narrator. The courtroom was dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Elijah stopped the video. He looked at Judge Hawthorne. The man's face was ashen. Elijah's voice was quiet, but it echoed. The state has no case. There was no probable cause for my arrest. This is malicious prosecution, and I move for a dismissal, with prejudice. The judge just stared. His world was tilting. This kid had just surgically dismantled his entire courtroom. Who are you? The judge whispered. Elijah Price allowed himself a small, cold smile. He reached into the inner pocket of his cheap suit jacket. He pulled out a single, crisp white card. He walked to the bench, placed it directly in front of the judge. Extreme close-up on the judge's eyes widening in shock. Judge Hawthorne looked down. The card was simple, embossed. Elijah Price, J.D., Harvard Law School, Innocence Project Litigation Unit. The music cuts out abruptly. A sharp, ringing silence. He wasn't a student. He was a graduate, an attorney, and he wasn't here by accident. He was undercover. The judge's mouth opened. Nothing came out. The prosecutor looked like he might be sick. Elijah leaned forward, his voice a low, dangerous whisper only the judge could hear. This wasn't about me, Your Honor. He let that hang in the air. This was about you. He turned his back on the stunned judge. He faced the camera, and he said the words that would break the internet. Elijah turned to face the camera directly, breaking the fourth wall. Elijah to camera. My name is Elijah Price, and for the past 6 months, I've been investigating this court, this prosecutor's office, this judge. He paused. The wrongful conviction rate in this county is 400% above the national average, and now we know why. The gavel bangs once, sharply. The screen cuts to black for a full second. He wasn't fighting a charge. He was building one. The judge, the prosecutor, the police. They were all targets. And Elijah had just sprung the trap. Quick, flashing images. A file labeled Operation Scales of Justice. A list of names. A photo of Judge Hawthorne shaking hands with a known crime boss. But as the courtroom erupted in chaos, as the judge screamed for order, one man didn't move. A lone figure in the back, in a dark suit, watching Elijah. He smiled, lifted a phone, and whispered just 2 words. A mysterious, shadowy figure in the back of the courtroom. Phone to ear. Mysterious man whispering. He's here. A phone dial tone, then the sound of a gun being cocked. Music hits a dramatic, unresolved chord and stops. They thought he was a prey. They were wrong. He was a hunter, and his investigation was just beginning. Chaos of a courtroom erupting, people shouting, a gavel banging frantically. Then sudden silence and a low, pulsing synth beat begins. The trap was sprung. The hunter was exposed. But in the shadows, another predator watched. Elijah just revealed everything. Now, the real game begins. Chaos in the courtroom from part 1. Then a sharp cut to the mysterious man in the back, smirking. Judge Hawthorne's face was purple with rage. Order? I will have order in my court. He slammed his gavel. Over and over. It was useless. Reporters were on their phones. The jury was in an uproar. The prosecutor, Caldwell, looked like he'd seen a ghost. This was more than a lost case. This was the end of his career. The judge screaming, spit flying. Caldwell clutching the table, hyperventilating. Elijah stood perfectly still in the center of the storm. Calm, a rock in a hurricane. He didn't look at the judge. His eyes were locked on the man in the back, the one who whispered into the phone. The man gave a slow, deliberate nod, then melted out the door. Elijah's mind raced. That wasn't part of the plan. Who was he? Elijah's POV focusing on the mysterious man. The man nods, a sinister smile. Then he turns and leaves. Bailiffs moved toward Elijah, not to arrest him, to protect him. They were pre-briefed. FBI. This was always the dangerous moment. The moment the mask came off. Mr. Price, we need to move you, one said quietly. Elijah held up a hand. Not yet. He turned to the judge. The man was still sputtering. You set me up. Elijah's voice cut through the noise. Ice cold. I didn't set the trap, Your Honor. I just showed you the door. You walked through it yourself. Suddenly, the main courtroom doors burst open, not with force, with authority. For men in dark suits and earpieces entered. They moved with a chilling efficiency. They didn't look at the crowd. They went straight for the prosecutor. Caldwell. The lead agent flashed a badge. FBI. Jonathan Caldwell. You're under arrest for conspiracy to deprive citizens of their civil rights under color law. They spun him around, cuffed him, read him his rights. The entire thing took 10 seconds. Caldwell didn't fight. He just went limp. He knew. It was over. The FBI agents moving with precision. The shiny handcuffs on Caldwell's wrists. His head hanging low. Then the lead agent turned. His gaze swept the room. It landed on Judge Hawthorne. The judge shrank back in his chair. The agent didn't move. He didn't have to. The message was clear. You're next. The agent gave a slight nod to Elijah. Counselor. Elijah nodded back. Agent Miller. This was all coordinated. A perfectly executed strike. But Elijah's eyes flicked back to the door, where the smiling man had been. That wasn't coordinated. That was a variable, a dangerous one. In a secure holding room, Elijah debriefed with Agent Miller. We got him, Eli. Caldwell is singing already. He's giving up everyone. The cops, the clerk, even the mayor. Miller slapped the table. This is it. The whole rotten orchard is coming down. Elijah wasn't celebrating. Who was the man in the back? Dark suit, left just after the arrest. Miller frowned, checked his tablet. No one on our team. Description doesn't match any known associates of the judge or Caldwell. A cold knot tightened in Elijah's gut. He made me. He knew who I was. He said, he's here. The mood in the room shifted. The victory feeling evaporated. Miller's phone buzzed. He answered. His face went grim. When? He listened. Where? He hung up, looked at Elijah. The witness, Mr. Edgerton, the one who ID'd you. What about him? He's dead. Found in his car an hour ago. Single gunshot. Looks like a suicide. Elijah shot to his feet. Suicide? He was a nervous wreck. Not a killer. Definitely not a suicide. Miller's face was stone. There was a note apologizing for the false testimony. Said the pressure was too much. Elijah paced. That's a cleanup. They're tying loose ends. And they're moving fast. Too fast. The man in the back, he wasn't just watching. He was directing. Back at the FBI field office, Elijah dug into the data, Caldwell's files, the judge's case history. There had to be a connection deeper than corruption. Something bigger. Why frame a nobody like Elijah? Why that specific car? He cross-referenced the cases Caldwell had prosecuted, the ones Judge Hawthorne had presided over. All convictions. All low-level, non-violent offenders. Most of plea deals. But a pattern emerged. A name, Thorne Consolidated, a private military contractor. A giant. The owner? Arthur Thorne. A billionaire. A philanthropist. A ghost. Files flying across a screen. Headshots of convicted people. A logo for Thorne Consolidated appears, overlaying all of them. Elijah's blood ran cold. Marcus Thorne, his friend, the one who owned the car he was accused of stealing. He was Arthur Thorne's son. Elijah called Marcus's number. It went straight to voicemail. He called Marcus's apartment. The landlord answered. He moved out 2 days ago. Said it was sudden. Family emergency. Family emergency. Elijah pulled up the employee records for every convicted person. They all had one thing in common. Before their arrest, they all worked at a facility owned by Thorne Consolidated, a research lab on the edge of the city, a lab that didn't officially exist, a satellite image of a nondescript industrial building, security fences, no signage. This wasn't about putting a black kid in jail. This was a system, a pipeline. They weren't targeting Elijah. They were targeting anyone who could expose them. And Marcus was the key. He knew something, and now he was gone. Elijah's cell phone rang. A blocked number. He answered. A voice. Smooth. Cultured. Deadly. Mr. Price. A remarkable performance today. It was him. The man from the courtroom. Who are you? A concerned citizen. I have a proposition. I'm not interested. You will be. You're looking for your friend. Marcus. Elijah's heart stopped. Where is he? Safe. For now. He wants to talk to you. He has something for you. Evidence. Against his father. The voice was like silk. I can arrange a meeting. Neutral ground. Just you and him. It was an obvious trap. But Elijah had no choice. Marcus was in danger because of him. Where? The old waterfront warehouses. Pier 7. Midnight. Come alone. If I see any FBI, Marcus dies. The line went dead. Elijah's face tense. The phone in his hand. The time on a clock, 11:47 p.m. Elijah looked at Agent Miller across the room. He couldn't tell him. He couldn't risk Marcus's life. This was on him. He stood up. I'm getting some air. Miller nodded, distracted by a report. Elijah walked out, into the night. He had a gun. He had a plan. But the man on the phone, he was always 3 steps ahead. Elijah arrives at the decrepit Pier 7. Fog rolls in from the water. It's dark, silent. The warehouse was a skeleton of rust and shadows. Elijah moved silently, his hand on his weapon. Marcus, he whispered into the darkness. A figure stepped out from behind a pillar. Not Marcus, the man from the courtroom. He held a phone, on speaker. Elijah, help me. It's a trap. Marcus's voice was cut off by a scream, then a sickening thud. Silence. The man smiled. He was a loose end, just like you. He raised his other hand. A detonator. The great Elijah Price, Harvard lawyer. He pressed a button. Let's see how you do in a real courtroom. Boom. A massive, deafening explosion. The screen shakes violently. Then ringing silence. The screen is filled with fire and flying debris. Then everything goes black. Game over. A deafening, ringing silence after the explosion. Then a slow, haunting piano note begins, punctuated by a heartbeat. The explosion should have killed him. It was meant to. But Elijah Price wasn't just a lawyer. He was a survivor. And the man in the suit had just made his last mistake. Black screen. The faint sound of crackling fire. A single, Blinking eye opens in the darkness. Smoke, dust, pain. Elijah's ears rang. His body was bruised, but he was alive. Thrown clear by the blast wave into the cold river, he dragged himself onto the dock, coughing water and blood. The man in the suit stood silhouetted against the fire, smiling, confirming his kill. He turned to leave. That's when he heard it, a voice from the ashes, raw, but steady. Leaving so soon? The man froze, spun around. Elijah stood, dripping, burned, but unbroken. The case isn't closed, Elijah said. The man's smile vanished, replaced by cold fury. He reached for his gun, but Elijah was faster. He didn't pull a weapon. He raised his voice. The evidence is already public. The man hesitated. What? The moment my heart stops beating, Elijah said, tapping his chest. A dead man's switch uploads every file, every recording, to every major news outlet in the world. He took a step forward. Your name, Arthur Thorne's name, the judge, the mayor, all of it. Elijah spread his arms. So go ahead, shoot, and make us both martyrs. The man's hand trembling over his gun, the fire reflecting in Elijah's determined eyes. Sirens wailed in the distance. Closer, the man was trapped. His plan, his perfect violent plan, had failed. He hadn't counted on Elijah's mind, his real weapon. You think you won? The man spat. You're still a dead man walking. Elijah took another step. No, I'm the man who remembered the first lesson of law. He was inches from the assassin now. It's not about the truth. The man frowned, confused. Then what? Elijah's voice dropped to a whisper. It's about proof. On cue, red laser dots appeared on the man's chest. A dozen of them. From the shadows, FBI snipers emerged. Agent Miller stepped forward, cuffs in hand. We got it all, Miller said. The audio from Eli's wire. The confession. Your boss is next. The man finally understood. The meeting. The trap. The explosion. It was all Elijah's trap. A second, deeper trap. He had walked right into it. The laser sights on the man's suit. The defiant look crumbling into utter defeat. The fallout was nuclear. By morning, the story was everywhere. Billionaire Arthur Thorne arrested in massive corruption scheme. Judge Hawthorne, mayor, dozens of officials implicated. The system wasn't just broken. It was exposed. But for Elijah, the real victory wasn't on the news. It was in a quiet conference room. One by one, the wrongfully convicted were released. Men and women who had lost years of their lives. Their hands were shook. Their records were wiped clean. Their tears were met not with pity, but with justice. Elijah watched. He didn't celebrate. He bore witness. This was the cost. This was why he fought. A montage of news headlines. Then slow-motion shots of prison gates opening. Families reuniting, hugs, tears of joy. Weeks later, Elijah stood where it began. The empty courtroom. The judge's bench was dark. A symbol of a broken power, now vacant. Agent Miller found him there. They're giving you a medal. The director wants to offer you a job. Elijah didn't turn around. I already have a job. What? Being a human lightning rod for trouble? Finally, Elijah smiled. No. He placed a single file on the judge's desk. My job is to be the stone in the shoe of power. He turned to Miller, the uncomfortable truth it tries to ignore. He walked toward the door. His mission wasn't over. It was just the beginning. Elijah's silhouette as he walked down the courthouse steps into the sunlight. The world will always try to judge you by its cover. It will see your age, your skin, your past. It will try to put you in a box labeled guilty. Your power does not come from proving them wrong. It comes from knowing they are wrong before they even speak. Your identity is not their label. Your future is not their verdict. Your life is your closing argument. Make irrefutable. The most powerful sentence is the one you refuse to let them finish. Elijah Price